Let's talk about the real cost of extreme weather in the US. The numbers we're seeing these days are, well, they're truly staggering. And these aren't just abstract statistics, they really represent a new and incredibly expensive reality that's unfolding right before our eyes.
Okay, let's just start with a number $100 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. What on earth could cost that much? A mission to Mars? A decade's worth of infrastructure projects? The truth is, it's something much closer to home and way more alarming.
That's right. $100 billion in damages from extreme weather. And get this, that's just in the first 6 months of 2025. It absolutely blew the previous half-year record of $57 billion out of the water. So we're not just inching past old records anymore, we are shattering them by nearly double.
So how did we get to such a massive number so quickly? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle was one single event. The Los Angeles wildfires in early 2025 were a catastrophe on a scale we just haven't seen before. They were responsible for more than half of that entire record-breaking total. They weren't just big fires. They hit really dense, high-value urban areas, which just amplified the financial destruction.
As shocking as that number is, it would be a huge mistake to just write it off as a fluke or one bad year. All the data shows this is part of a very clear and rapidly accelerating trend. We're seeing more destructive, more expensive disasters, and they're happening more often. And this really shows you just how much the frequency has changed. Back in the 1980s, the country had on average about 82 days to recover between these billion-dollar disasters. Think about that, almost 3 months. Now, in just the last 6 years, that window has shrunk to only 18 days. The pace is just relentless. And here's another way to visualize that acceleration. The entire decade of the 1980s saw 33 of these events, the whole decade. Compare that to the single year of 2024, which had 27. And in just the first 5 years of this decade, we've already seen 115. The trend is, well, it's undeniable. So what does that all add up to? Since 2016 alone, these kinds of events have cost the United States over $1 trillion in damages. $1 trillion. That's a scale of financial impact that's honestly difficult to even comprehend, all happening in a pretty short period of time.
This really is the key question, isn't it? Why is this happening? Are we just having a string of really bad luck, or are there deeper forces at play? Well, experts point to a combination of factors they've started calling a two-headed monster. And I think that's a perfect metaphor because it really captures the dual nature of the problem. It's not just one thing causing this massive surge in costs. It's two powerful forces working together, and each one is making the other more destructive.
So, here are the two heads of that monster. First up, we have a change in climate that is fundamentally altering the nature of weather itself. And second, we have what experts call the expanding bullseye, which is all about where and how we're building our communities. Let's break those two down. Okay, so the first driver, climate change. Scientists say it's essentially supercharging weather events. A warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture, which leads to more intense downpours and flooding. At the same time, it's also drying out vegetation, creating these perfect tinderbox-like conditions for bigger, faster-moving wildfires. And on top of that, there's growing evidence that it's also amplifying the sheer strength of hurricanes. Now, for the second head of the monster, the expanding bullseye effect. And to put it simply, it just means we are building more stuff in harm's way. As our towns and cities expand, so does the target for a potential hurricane, or a tornado, or a wildfire. You have more homes, more roads, more businesses, which means that when a disaster does strike, the potential for damage is just so much greater than it was a few decades ago. This quote from Professor Stephen Strader just sums up the problem perfectly. People want to live in beautiful places, right? On the coast, near the forest. But that beauty often comes with an inherent risk, and it's putting more and more people and property in these highly exposed areas for when disaster inevitably strikes. We've talked a lot about the financial cost, and it's staggering. But property can be rebuilt, money can be replaced. The true, irreversible cost of these disasters is, of course, the human toll. Let's just start with 2022. In that year alone, major disasters in the US claimed 474 lives. At the time, that number felt tragically high. It felt like a benchmark for the human cost we were starting to see. Now, let's look at just one single event in 2025. The flash floods in central Texas killed at least 135 people. That's a tragedy on a massive scale, all from just one storm system. And it really highlights the escalating danger we're facing. And that wasn't all for 2025. In that same year, tornadoes alone claimed another 68 lives across the country. Every one of these events tells a story about their growing lethality. And if we zoom out again, just like we did with the financial costs, since 2016, these billion-dollar weather events have killed more than 5,000 people. It's just a stark, tragic reminder that the human cost is rising right alongside the financial one. The takeaway from all this data is pretty much unavoidable. What we're experiencing isn't just a string of bad luck. It is not a statistical anomaly. This trend of frequent, intense, and costly disasters is what climatologists are now calling our new reality. And we'll end with this really powerful thought from NOAA climatologist Adam Smith. It's a sobering call to action. The future of extreme weather that we've all been warned about for so long, it isn't decades away. It's here. And the central question this leaves all of us with is, are we prepared for the world we're already living in?